the kind of video that really shouldn't work on YouTube.
It's almost an hour long, with a full title sequence and even moments of silence. But hold on, silence is bad for retention, right?
It was a lesson watching how much can occur in silence and how that can hold your attention. Some of these moments of pause are the most interesting to watch in the entire thing. Data-wise, the retention is fantastic.
Michelle Khare is redefining YouTube with her new documentary, I Trained Like an Olympic Boxer.
Directed by Garrett Kendall and edited by Ryan Forsyth, this film pushes the concept of a YouTube video into a new place.
I don't think that attention span is going down. I think that people just have a better bullshit meter.
Michelle and her team proves the value of making your content premium. And this conversation explores how they made it and why you should focus on making your own premium content.
Content creators can challenge traditional media.
I want the quality because it shows we can go to deep emotional places on YouTube.
When we go this hard is when we find the most impact.
The Editing Podcast is brought to you by Riverside. It is the best remote video recording tool for podcasts. You can find out more about them later. I'm really excited because actually you're our first guest back.
We're back.
We are here to talk about how great the editing was, how great the storytelling was, all of the presentation of it all. And so I do want to ask you guys, is there a scene in this that you guys want to break down?
Ooh, we love so much of it. How do we choose?
Good?
Yeah.
Oh, enjoy it.
My favorite scene of the entire video is Michelle's first spar that she does, which happens very early on in the video, very early on in the process.
And that's the first thing we edited. It set the pace for the whole video, I think.
The entire first round of the spar is we're like from Tony's perspective, not even Michelle's perspective. We're showing shots of Tony, we're hearing Tony's talking head.
First time you step in the ring to spar with another opponent, you've normally got a lot of nerves going through your body.
We're hearing his thoughts about the situation. To me, signals that like Tony is still sort of sussing out Michelle and testing if she's actually ready to take this on herself. That's where I get the tension. We're seeing like Michelle and an Olympian, and the Olympian criticizing or silently judging Michelle's performance, diligently watching every step or every move that Michelle was making.
You got it. At the end of the spar, when I fail, when I get knocked down, what really stood out to me about what Ryan accomplished in his edit is the emotional intelligence that Ryan has in that scene. Ryan leaves in this really nice moment of just silence between me and Tony.
Go for a little walk outside as well.
That's really the moment where the bond was formed between her and Tony. If you watch the very beginning of that spar, his body language, how he addresses her, when she asks a question, she says,
Are there any other rules or things we need to know?
No.
That's it? Okay.
Just boxing. Hands
Okay,
up.
cool.
and then by the end of that round, she gets knocked down.
You got it.
And that's where it raises the question for him, is she going to continue?
Tony's not 100% sold yet on Michelle as an entity. It's okay that she got knocked down. Tony was waiting to see what she would do when if she would get back up. And in that moment when they're sitting on the side of the ring in silence, that the silence that you kept in, which is probably the first thing that most YouTube editors would just chop out, that silence was the moment where Tony realized, okay, she's gonna get back up and I think I can train this person all the way to the end.
I think YouTube editors would have cut that out and just moved on to the next thing. Michelle failed, and let's see the next thing of training. It was a lesson, to me, watching how much can occur in silence and how that can hold your attention and retention in that too.
I remember watching all of the footage, and I came to you guys and I was like, hey, this is a story about your relationship with Tony and your journey that you're going on together.
Well, and I think that informs what will be satisfying at the end. Like, let's say Michelle doesn't win the fight and in the end, as long as her relationship with Tony is paid off and satisfied at the end, that will be fulfilling enough, even if she loses. I mean, that's sort of like the Rocky trajectory.
It's like any boxing movie. Like, what is it really about? Like, boxing is just the element to tell the story about a relationship that's occurring. It's the relationship between the coach. Usually it's a love interest. We got you guys in at the end. They know Garrett's behind the camera, so.
When we were filming this project, we were trying to hire another editor for our team. And so we gave a scene, the first spar, that to Ryan, who had applied to the job. He killed the edit, as you can see. I mean, currently in the video, it's one of the most rewatched, high retention points of the video. And after he edited that, we hired him. So, and we're like, can you do the rest of this video now?
The edit that is in the video right now is almost completely unchanged from your original test edit.
So if you identified early on that this film is actually about the relationship between Michelle and Tony, how did that inform your edit?
Like I said earlier, became our North Star. As this unfolded over the course of a year and a half, that story kept evolving. If you'll remember, Tony left after the first 12 weeks.
Tony is becoming a nomad and traveling the world with his family.
I'm here for you. I'm on your team, obviously.
When I think of like who I'm doing this for, it's obviously for me, but it's for you.
Oh man, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
He's one of our main characters.
Yeah,
And my coach. So what am I gonna do?
Story first, guys. The fight's in a second.
Yeah, the real tragedy's in the edit. How do we fix that as storytellers was a really interesting thing to try to solve.
You know, when we were able to introduce Kevin.
My name's Kevin Watson, and I'm taking over for Tony.
Does that make you nervous?
Which part? The Tony part?
It managed to make our stories that much stronger.
Kevin in real life was not someone we cast. He was Tony's saying, Kevin, you're going to step up to the plate and do this.
But we were going to just say, oh, Tony's still coaching you from afar. And we weren't even going to bring Kevin in as a fully fledged character. Yeah, I think you identified in the last couple weeks of training that Kevin was he was transforming and having his own arc. And you told me, hey, I don't think you know this, Garrett, but Kevin has never cornered anyone before in a real fight, ever.
During the fight, he ascended into a new human in the corner. I was like, you're a different person.
I had him in my ear because I had his lav on him. Oh my God. I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Was always a quiet guy before, and then suddenly when he was in the fight,
well, he's a Libra, very introverted.
Kevin and Tony they co-own the gym together. They're business partners. Tony's the Olympian.
That doesn't look good, Jim, and that doesn't come.
Kevin is the other half to that. There's a little bit of Kevin being in Tony's Olympic shadow sometimes, just inevitably. Kevin really looks up to Tony as a trainer and as a coach.
I've got big shoes to fill, and I hope that I fill them.
And so now we started to identify, this is not just Michelle proving to Tony. This is also Kevin proving himself to Tony. When both Michelle and Kevin go to the fight together, they're both fighting. Kevin is fighting in the corner just as much as Michelle's fighting out in the ring.
And after that, I think we were all so impressed with his performance that I felt that it needed to be a bigger part of the storyline. And then we, at that point, found out way more about his familial situation, his personal connection to Creator Clash.
To know that an event like this is supporting The Longest Day, the Alzheimer's Association, that was just the icing on the cake for me. My mom has been the most amazing person in my life. In 2014, she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And to know that my mom's gonna forget who I am is the worst thing I can imagine, but we fight.
Weeks of training with Kevin is when we find out about his own motivation, his mom who has Alzheimer's, and his own personal fight. We didn't know any of that until very close to the fight, and we're like, this is such an important part of the story for us to tell.
Did he mention it off camera, and then you guys go, wait, we have to get this?
He would mention hey, I'm going home for this weekend, and I didn't really know what it meant. And eventually I found out he's going home once a month to be the caretaker for his family. And it literally wasn't until after the fight happened that I, with a broken nose, was like, Garrett, I think we need to do a talking head with Kevin and inject this in the story. It's going to be so good.
It was a week before we put the video out. It was we're going to do a talking head with Kevin now.
We have to do this. It was one of the last things. It was the last thing we shot for the video.
So this was recorded in our studio, and we also record podcasts remotely, and we're able to get that 4K crispy video with Riverside.
If you're not using Riverside for all of your virtual meetings, you're making a big mistake.
I've even been using it for consultations. As soon as we're done, I get to send them the entire recording.
And not to mention the recording quality is it's good, which is why we like to use it for podcasting. And we love it because it records each audio and video track separately so that editing is such a breeze when we get into post.
Which means our editor can get started on cutting it almost immediately.
And even if you or your guest has absolute garbage internet, it doesn't matter. Because remember that one time when we were in the hotel room?
I mean, the call kept on jostling. I thought we lost it, but because Riverside records locally and then uploads, the call was perfect. And it's easy for the guests. They don't need to install anything. You just send them the link and you can start recording.
It even says like, roll out the red carpet. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it makes me feel special.
It makes me feel so special.
Riverside can also auto-transcribe your recording and use its text-based editing tool to edit it right there. If you're podcasting, creating video content, or recording online calls, then sign up to riverside.fm for free and use code editingpodcast for 20% off.
And you can find that link in the description, and we'll see you back in the interview.
One of my favorite parts of the video that came about because of this new story discovery we made was the moment when Kevin and I go to the arena to see what the crowd looks like before the fight.
Not that bad, right?
Not that bad.
Again, I think this is another scene that probably most people would have cut out. Let's just get to the fight as soon as we can.
It's my favorite scene in the whole thing. Can't take credit for it. It was all Garrett.
Talk us through that scene then, like how you made that one work for you.
Well, it wasn't originally in the story bar. And then we were going through the footage and we saw this moment of Kevin taking Michelle out to the arena to see the crowd for the first time because he noticed Michelle was getting really nervous. And I was like, oh, that's an amazing way to sort of develop their relationship with each other and fully have Kevin fully gain your trust right before you go out. And I think, and what we did with score even in that scene and why I think it feels so cathartic is because we play a very specific track during their bond. And then the scene transitions into Michelle going out to walk out herself, to actually walk out into the arena. And we play the same song, but the more, a different version of the song, the more climactic, triumphant version of that song. And so we sort of built that in as the theme of their developing relationship.
I'll tell you an editing secret of that scene. Another reason this scene is very beautiful is because it's me watching Haley, who was my sparring partner, win her fight, which, gives me the motivation to go off and win mine. The truth is, when we were out there watching the arena, we were watching a completely different fight.
I saw that coming.
Liars. I will say, Haley did inspire me to win my fight, but we were watching it backstage getting ready.
Editing is lying.
Poetic liars, that's what I call it. You still play towards the truth in her witnessing it in the stadium, but you still kind of focused it on just like the emotional truth as well. The truth was still expressed.
That was a really cool story to tell. It's a really interesting, three character dynamic that I've never experienced before or gotten to edit.
That's really, really incredible editing. A really neglected role that I see in a lot of editing that I think you guys actually managed to put a lot of attention in is ensuring, is this scene going to affect something else much later in the film? It really connects everything together. And I think that's actually a really important discipline.
Right.
I mean, over a course of a training video, this is a year of footage. How do we choose what beats from each training session do we show? Once we saw the fight, we went back and we tweaked all of our training sessions. So the reason we did this is because during the fight, there are very specific things that Michelle did well or did not do well. And we needed to set each of those things up.
If your nose bleeds, it's common for someone to do. Never do that. My coach will go crazy if
We set that moment up in that training session because in the fight on round 3, Michelle gets punched in the nose, she bleeds, and she does exactly that.
Nice jab though. Andrea, she answers back. A little blood seeping out of the nose here from Michelle.
She makes the exact mistake that Tony warns her about not making.
Well, I did it when it was safe, okay? I did it after the ref separated us and I had a second.
Cool.
That nosebleed moment, we didn't find that until the final days of editing this thing. But that final week was like a crazy push to be connecting all of these pieces, finding new pieces.
A scene that already had selects, we had to say, screw the selects.
Oh, yeah.
We have different insight now. So we need to now watch the raw footage again, knowing we're looking for a nosebleed mention now, which maybe we never wanted to include. We rewatched that psychology scene, that training scene with Tony, and then we found the moment where Tony's talking about getting punched in the face and does the exact motion that Michelle does in the fight. And we could not believe that we found that shot during the fight itself. The idea is you need to sort of relearn all of your lessons with Tony so that we still think while the fight's happening, it's not already won. There is still tension. Can she relearn these lessons before the fight ends, and can she seal the deal?
I think it was a great lesson for us that in any project we do, when we edit that final scene, go back and make sure everything has a little tie from earlier in the video.
I think I might have made the mistake, if I was editing this, to keep in a lot of that, like, oh, we're trying to find this fight. We can't find it. We can't find it.
Literally none of the training I'm doing matters if I can't get on a fight card. I've had a few very promising calls. There are a couple different organizations that are interested. Hey, we got an offer from Misfits, but I just need to find this opponent.
When do you know what conflict to keep in and what conflict to cut out?
To me, it felt like just enough amount. This video is sort of like a timeline as well. And I mean, there were 7 months when I couldn't find a fight. I think there's a perspective that for influencer boxing, these matches just fall out of the sky, or, you know, that might happen for some people, but it did not happen for me.
It is boring conflict. We needed to find a way, how do we make that more interesting? Almost like teasing who is our antagonist gonna be.
It's happening! I'm fighting a creator clash! I will be fighting Andrea Botez in Creator Clash 2.
Because once she finds a fight, our antagonist appears suddenly.
It looks like you guys had like multiple story beats that you needed to work through, which is her training. It is finding the fight.
There were more issues. So by the end of the fight camp, Tony leaves the country. Another problem is she gets injured on week 11, and we don't use that footage. We don't tell that story.
We actually didn't, because there were so many problems that it created this too hopeless, all is lost moment when we showed it to a couple people. They're like, man, I was like really sad by the time all of this happened to you.
But it's meant to be responding you becoming a badass. Like,
sure,
yeah.
But we felt that it was a little too like we're hitting rock bottom. And so we had to pull a few of those things away and shorten it just a little bit so that it's enough of a downturn in the roller coaster, but not too much.
It's a little too much to focus on. Obstacles only work if we know where we're headed. And if we literally don't know where we're going because there's no fight in sight, then it just feels bad to watch.
Cutting out obstacles actually kept this flow a lot better. I like
Ironically, and I think a lot of issue with current YouTube videos is there's not enough conflict, or the stakes aren't real. They're very fabricated.
You had too much conflict.
Take some of ours.
The reason the conflict didn't work, though, was because there wasn't a goal in sight.
To go off that, that's exactly what we did. When this montage concludes, she lands a fight. She gets the fight.
I will be fighting Andrea Botez in Creator Clash 2.
And then we reveal Tony left the country. So it's like, the fight's happening, but here's the problem. My coach is gone. So the obstacles make sense once we know where we're headed.
Well, no, I think the thing that really surprised me about the video overall was the amount of time that you spent on building the tension before the fight at the arena. And that was the time that I think it really set into me as an audience member how big of a deal this was and how nervous you were. It allowed me to feel that, and the stakes were raised so much more in the actual fight because of you had spent like, I don't know, 10 minutes or something just hanging out in front of the actual fight. And that was like a huge chunk of the video.
That's the most vulnerable part of the experience, is that hour and a half before you go out there. It's not actually the fight. It's right before, because that's when your mind is going crazy. And to me, that was an important part of the experience, of the fighter experience, that I wanted included in the video.
And our intention was there are two main backstage scenes. The first one is Michelle watching Sabrina's fight on the TV, and she's watching these two people go at it and beat each other up, and that freaks Michelle out.
And I could sense Michelle was getting kind of nervous, and I knew, okay, I got to keep her calm, I got to keep her, relaxed. And you won't be in this position. She will be.
And and that's making her start to get nervous. Kevin swoops in and is like, all right, I recognize she's nervous. And the second main scene is them going back out now to a more heightened version of the arena, and Kevin proving to Michelle it's not that bad. It's all good things, right? And then you watch a second fight, but with a completely different feel to it. Now it's triumphant. Now it's inspiring you.
Comes out forward. Nice right hand from Marisha. Now we're trading a little bit here. And there is the bell. What a finish. What a finish.
Everything you've described, I felt, but I didn't realize that story, as in like explicitly, until you pointed it out. And you guys' content does that really, really well, where I think you kind of trust the audiences. You don't have to tell them how to feel. You're actually trusting them that they will be able to understand it themselves.
If we do our jobs well enough, they'll connect with that story and with that emotion. Yeah. And that's always my number one goal.
That's amazing. I cried. Wow. It was like, it was so emotional. I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to, reverse engineer it and be like, why was I so emotional? And I think I would just like to ask you, like, what do you think it was that ripped into the audience's hearts?
Honestly, I think it is that build. The build and the tension that we build for that entire arrival at the arena to the time of the walkout. Like, I tear up during the walkout, honestly. I'm just like, holy shit, like, what did we just experience? I remember walking into that locker room and the scene that you talk about with watching Sabrina, like we were like looking at the screen like, where are we? It was a totally new environment for us. So it was easy to go back and say, well, this is true. We experienced this. This was tense. And then the moment with Kevin was so beautiful out in the arena. So it's just those peaks and valleys of that journey to the fight, I think, that really gets you there, gets you to tear up.
Hi, smooth transition. We just wanted to take a moment to let you know about some of our favorite products. Did you know that running a YouTube channel is really hard?
We didn't. We've been podcasting for almost a year now, and it's like a startup life. And Creative Juice understands that making a creative business is messy and confusing.
And they found ways to make it as easy as possible with JuiceClub. It's the ultimate members-only community for creators like you and Hayden and I.
Hello.
Looking to level up their business.
And here's all the perks that they will give you. Creator community, monthly ad sets advances, unlimited bookkeeping, growth tools, and beta brand boosts too.
As the creator economy continues to boom, most creators end up feeling isolated.
I mean, literally, me and Jordan are in two completely different buildings and been working together. Like, I haven't seen him in weeks.
I miss you, bro.
I miss you too, man. We need to hang out more. We're doing a podcast.
Hayden, I miss you so much.
Community and resources can be the difference between a creator burnout or growth. You deserve financial tools and resources catered to your needs. So if you want to join the Juice Club, hit the link in the description and we'll see you in there. Do you like this music? It makes footage like this feel gorgeous to watch and feel. And it's easy to put in your videos with TrackClub.
It's a sound library that's disciplined in not bloating itself with hundreds of thousands of tracks, but it only keeps the great ones that can complement your footage to feel like this.
We even use TrackClub with our Pixar intro. The music's so good, it works with Pixar. I can even download the stems, throw them in a multicam, and just start with the pianos, and then slowly bring in each instrument myself. I have total control of how I want the music to play in my content. And if you want to keep it simple, you can even do it with Mixlab.
If you want your content to feel as good as this, go ahead and hit the link in the description to get your free month of TrackClub now.
I think the other thing about the final fight scene that just really made the tears fall was all the reaction shots. Because I think the characters that you built and the way that you set that up, the reaction shots were so clutch. They showed, I think, the real maturity that you have as far as storytelling. I also love the moment when Tony was celebrating a little hit, and he was like, "Oh, I shouldn't be celebrating." I am. I was super excited. And so I just want to hear what your thought process was putting that together.
Well, we knew going into shooting it that we needed to have a camera on Tony. He's one of our main characters, obviously. I pretty much held on Tony when we were shooting it the whole time during the fight. I barely got to watch the fight. I just watched Tony through my screen. Yeah, those reaction shots are really what enhances the story, because we're seeing now Tony, who can't directly speak to Michelle, react with his, again, body language to try to pull something out of her, which then inevitably pulls it out of our viewer and enhances that narrative.
Yeah, like an extra reaction shot of Tony did more than just adding another punch in from the fight.
There's even a moment, the very end, Michelle lands this massive shot to close the fight, literally at the bell. From the punch, I think it goes like huge punch hit, Tony's reaction, Kevin's reaction, then Kevin bursts into the ring, then we cut to Michelle celebrating, throwing her hands up, which is like so many cuts within like a millisecond.
What was interesting about this is my intuition was, we should have the final hit be this big slow-mo, huge hit where we really sell the power and like that will, sell that Michelle won. And you fought me on that. And you said, no. Michelle landing that punch in slow-mo is not what's going to make us feel good. What's going to make us feel good is Tony's reaction to the punch.
Yeah, I think that's going to be all she wrote there. Big shot to end the fight. Wow, what?
So the punch happens in regular speed, and then you immediately cut to Tony reacting to that punch. And that's what makes us feel like it was a win.
And Kevin slamming on them
so
on the ring.
I'm glad you fought me on that, because that completely changed the end of how you feel in that moment.
I get that, because as an editor, that's a cool shot. So you want to put that in, but you prioritize the story.
Yeah, it's just like you did in the spar. I mean, that was foreshadowing.
Yeah,
that.
Same type of thing.
We basically went through every round of the fight and determined if you had to summarize this round in one sentence, what is it? And make sure that each round and the shots that y'all chose as a part of it contributed to that story of winning or losing or my nose breaking, whatever it may be.
What was the narrative beats of round one, and how did you make those cuts work?
Michelle drew a whole little arc roller coaster
I drew
about
a really bad
diagram. And in round one, it was really Michelle comes out, finding her footing, we're getting a sense of the space. She's, bouncing around, and you hear the commentators talking about that.
Michelle bouncing on that lead foot. Look at the turn. This is an experienced boxer I'm seeing right now. Nice jab from Michelle.
Then she starts to swing that overhand right. She misses. So she's still kind of sussing this out, trying to figure out what, how am I going to get my strategy to be effective?
I'm telling you, man.
Then we go to our first corner. Kevin is now like, this is what you're doing wrong. This is how you can fix it. We learned this in training.
Pace kind of picks up a little bit in round two.
Well, let's see what happens next.
She starts to land a little bit more, but still not the heroic kind of overhand right that we want. And the commentators start calling her out.
That right hand, she's gone to it a couple times now. Maybe starting to get a bit repetitive.
Just swinging that big right on.
Even Tony, he's like, she's swinging this overhand right and not doing anything.
And that overhand right is built up throughout the entire episode. Like, that's her secret weapon. And if she can't get her secret weapon working, she's not going to win this fight. It's not until round 3 where the nose breaks.
Nice jab, though. Andrea, she answers back. A little blood seeping out of the nose here from Michelle.
I think that was one of the peaks of our story structure for the fight. When her nose breaks, we were able to take that and use it as the beast mode that we call it, because then something clicked in her in reality that she just started connecting. I don't know what it was. She saw the blood and just went full beast mode.
She stepped back, kind of wiped her nose a little bit. I could just see the look on Michelle's face. Beast mode was activated.
So that was round 3. How did you make round 4 work?
Round 4 is our antagonist scene, which is Andrea. Not actually an antagonist in real life, but she's our very sweet girl.
Round 4 is our villain round, and that's because Michelle got the edge, but we can't let her keep that edge. And so after she unlocks beast mode, now we need the villain to have their moment to come back and their moment to shine. So then we cut to Andrea's corner.
That right hand is trash. It's trash.
Her coach talking about Michelle's flaws, what she's doing wrong, and how Andrea can overcome that. The music completely changes from that point.
You hit harder, you're longer, you're stronger, you work way harder. This is your time to take over. We need these rounds. Tony, I gotta say something here.
We found some really interesting songs that almost literally like a villain theme, like low strings that are sort of driving us and upping the tension. And she comes out in round 4, and we needed Andrea to win that round in the edit because she won it in real life. She won that round, and we needed to feel that in the edit. And so we showed as much of Michelle missing her shots as we could, and as much of Andrea landing her gnarliest shots as we could.
Woo! Nice counter there from Andrea Botez.
It feels like Michelle takes the L. It like is brutal. It's a brutal round.
So now that it sounds like Michelle's in trouble. So how do you make round 5 work then?
Round 5, Garrett, you really brought that one home. We start to really feel that Michelle's got it in the bag.
Highly contested right hand. 25 seconds left. Can Andrea turn the...
But every like anamorphic shot was Michelle landing those big overhand rights. The one secret weapon that she couldn't pull off. She's trained this whole time to land, couldn't pull it off in the first couple rounds, and now we're seeing her hit success time and time again with those shots. We hold on a long shot of Andrea getting tired, an anamorphic shot that is just Andrea missing and standing there tired and just stretching that moment out. A lot of storytelling with Tony and Kevin. You see Kevin on the side of the ring bring his overhand right down.
That's
and
your
then
favorite cut.
That's one of my favorite moments. And then Michelle does the exact same moment and clocks Andrea with one of those gnarly overhand rights.
Jab down the pipe.
And sort of telling the story of everything that she has been coached and is being told on the sidelines. Michelle's now able to finally execute.
Amazing. Yes, Michelle. You did it. You did it. You f***ing killed it right there. Good job, Michelle. Hey, hands up. Get your hands up.
I mean, this whole video is like almost 50 minutes, which is not a normal YouTube video.
It's a film.
It's a film. It's a documentary. I was like stalking you on the community tab, and you're like, our documentary comes out, and you're like, oh, okay, this is not a YouTube video. And like you had a title sequence. It started, fairly slow compared to most YouTube videos. Yeah, it felt like a feature-length doc. What was the thought process behind that?
Well, first of all, I want to say it's interesting. We've heard that this week, like this is not a YouTube video, and I want this to be what a YouTube video can be. It's on YouTube. It's a YouTube video, and I think people need to get with the program that this is the quality that's headed their way. I have always believed that content creators can challenge traditional media and networks and studios, and it's really our time, period. But as far as the opening.
Fighting out of the blue corner, Michelle Khare! Round 1, here we go.
The opening was something we struggled with for a while, actually. I mean, there were so many different versions of how we were going to approach the opening, because it's like, do we do a traditional cold open crazy training montage or show and all is lost moment at the beginning? We were on a walk, and another one of these crazy walks that we go on.
To be creative, you gotta go for a walk.
Garrett, it, let's just do a title sequence. But like with YouTube in mind. So like, we're definitely thinking about retention this entire time. So obviously in the beginning, we're like, okay, let's hook them with, you're going to watch a crazy fight at the end of this video. So we show the play out of, the announcing of our names, and we're about to fight. And then I wanted to hook people in that moment, and then command, now you're gonna sit down and get ready for the journey we're about to take you on.
The film school version of me is like, yeah, let's do it. But the YouTube version of me is like, oh, this is not gonna work. In 30, 45 seconds, we show what Michelle was saying, the lead up of the fight. You click on the thumbnail, you immediately are launched into the fight. It's about to happen. The tension is rising. Oh my God, how are we going to get here?
Huge bass drop.
Yeah. Huge bass drop. We come up on an old-timey song and a slow, drawn-out credit sequence. That was sort of our little like Raging Bull homage. We wanted to pay some homages to, the famous boxing movies that sort of came before what we're trying to do. And that was our nod to Raging Bull. We had many nods to Rocky throughout. I didn't think it was going to work at first, and you proved me wrong. What the credit sequence ended up doing is signaling to the audience, hey, grab your popcorn, sit down, you're going to watch this like it's a movie.
And what we can share that's really cool data-wise is the retention is fantastic in the title sequence. Isn't that crazy? There were two things I think that were interesting about this. If we had started on the title sequence, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that we had the benefit that nobody on YouTube is doing title sequences because of retention. And so it was actually like we were presenting a new idea in a way. It's not new. What I think the title sequence tells in terms of story is humanity and reality. Like, sure, what you see on a live stream of any boxing event is the crowd and the hype and everything, but we're forgetting like this is an empty room where this magic is made. These are just chairs. This is just a ring. And what makes it who it is are the people you're going to watch throughout the rest of this film.
That was beautiful.
That's amazing.
You've given us something fresh, something that we've not really seen before on this platform. The whole quality of this video, it is something I think incredibly rare and incredibly powerful, and I think both of us want more of this. I tweeted, this is what YouTube should be, in terms of this is what I think YouTube can be, and I think a lot of creators have the potential to be able to create content like this as well. For you, why is this quality of content so important for you guys? Because it's good. All right, cool. Podcast over.
I want the quality because it shows we can go to deep emotional places on YouTube.
I also personally think that the take of silence is boring is something I wanted to disprove in this piece because, as we've discussed, I mean, some of these moments of pause are the most interesting to watch. They make you hold your breath. They make you cry. That's when you really feel things. Because in my opinion, it's a tight edit. It's very fast. It grabs you. And there are a lot of, elements of retention storytelling that we employ. So I'm not we're trying to merge both worlds here.
This video is a really, really good example of if you can tell the story really, really well, you will have everyone's retention the entire video.
Thank you.
Did you just laugh?
I was laughing at how you emphasize the word retention.
I was trying to be all dramatic about it.
It made me laugh. I liked it. It was good.
To further elaborate on why do I think this quality is interesting to include on YouTube, I think personally it's out of unique competitive advantage necessity. When we go this hard is when we find the most impact. I mean, the ones where we go in this direction are always the episodes that make the most impact and honestly get the most views. The algorithm has, out of necessity, pushed us into this direction, and I'm really grateful.
Cool. So what is it like to put this much work into a single YouTube video?
It's really exhausting.
It almost killed us.
I broke my nose.
I know that feeling, yeah. It's just putting everything into something.
Yeah. So, I mean, spending 18 months on one single YouTube video is absolutely not sustainable. That's not what I'm trying to advocate for here. But I feel like once a year, twice a year, we have these projects that lead us on a path of discovery that we weren't anticipating. We thought this video was going to be 12 weeks. I fight somebody. We all move on. Another episode of Challenge Accepted. And where it took us was to hell and back because, by God, did we not want it to last this long. But I'm so proud of what it was. Sometimes you can fight and wrestle the story. And I mean, in fact, we were going to upload a version of this video in December and we were just like, no, you can force a story or you can just let it take you somewhere. And when you let it take you somewhere, that is such a better life experience in the end. Having my hand raised in the fight was one version of accomplishment, but uploading this video was equally, if not more exciting.
I'm speechless to that. I don't know how to respond to that. That was just beautiful.